Gilgamesh, Mesopotamia. Gilgamesh, the so-called hero of Mesopotamia, was anything but. This semi-mythical king of Uruk was a self-serving tyrant who cloaked his ambitions in divine pretense. Gilgamesh claimed to be 2/3 god and 1/3 human, a mathematical absurdity crafted to intimidate his people. His rituals were no less ludicrous. He communed with Shamash, the sun god, through elaborate sacrifices and dream interpretation, twisting celestial signs to justify his actions. But don't let the poetic epics fool you. This divine king trampled his subjects, forcing men into labor and women into servitude under the guise of divine privilege. Gilgamesh's infamous quest for immortality was not a noble pursuit, but a desperate bid to cheat death while his people suffered in silence. His towering walls of Uruk stood as monuments to his ego, not his people's protection. A beast dressed in divine robes, Gilgamesh's legacy reeks of exploitation masked as destiny. Akhenaten, Egypt. Next, we meet Akhenaten, the heretic pharaoh of Egypt, who dared to erase millennia of tradition for his egomaniacal vision. This self-proclaimed prophet of Aten, the sun disk, didn't just introduce monotheism, he enforced it with an iron fist. Temples to other gods were desecrated, priests were exiled, and the people were left bewildered by the abrupt dismantling of their spiritual life. Akhenaten's so-called sacred rituals revolved around himself and his family, standing under Aten's rays as if they alone could channel divine light. Behind the closed doors of Akhenaten, his newly built capital, rumors swirled of secret ceremonies where only his inner circle could witness the supposed divine revelations. Meanwhile, Egypt's empire crumbled, its people left to fend off famine and foreign threats, while their god king played spiritual revolutionary. Akhenaten's reforms died with him, a fitting end for a king whose hubris eclipsed his humanity. Ashoka the Great, India. Ashoka's transformation from a bloodthirsty conqueror to a supposed patron of Buddhism is often lauded as a tale of redemption. But scratch the surface of his piety, and you'll find a ruler who traded swords for subtle tyranny. After the carnage of the Kalinga War, where thousands were slaughtered to satisfy his imperial hunger, Ashoka adopted Buddhism, ostensibly to atone. But his embrace of Dharma wasn't purely altruistic. Ashoka's edicts, inscribed across his empire, touted peace and morality while subtly reinforcing his authority as a divine emissary. His secret councils to refine Buddhist doctrines excluded traditionalists and dissenters, steering spirituality toward a narrative that served his reign. This master of propaganda weaponized religion to pacify his subjects, ensuring their obedience under the guise of spiritual awakening. Ashoka's peaceful empire was a smokescreen for the psychological chains he wrapped around his people. Qin Shi Huang, China. The first emperor of China, Qin Shi Huang, was a tyrant of unparalleled ambition, driven by a chilling obsession with immortality. While unifying China, he unleashed cruelty on a scale that cemented his infamy. This self-declared son of heaven sought the elixir of life, dispatching alchemists and scholars to concoct potions that often resulted in poison rather than salvation. His secret religious practices were as bizarre as they were terrifying. Qin's court was rife with rituals aimed at appeasing celestial forces, including ceremonies involving human sacrifices to safeguard his divine mandate. His most inhumane act? The construction of his mausoleum, a sprawling underground city guarded by the terracotta army. Thousands of laborers were buried alive to preserve its secrets, their lives extinguished to ensure the emperor's afterlife was as secure as his earthly reign. Qin Shi Huang's pursuit of immortality was not only futile, but also a testament to his monstrous disregard for human life. Alexander the Great, hailed as a world conqueror, was less a hero and more a delusional narcissist, fueled by fantasies of divine ancestry. His claim to be the son of Zeus Ammon was not just vanity. It was a calculated ploy to cement his authority. At the Siwa oasis, Alexander received a suspiciously vague oracle that conveniently affirmed his divinity. This newfound godhood wasn't just a title. It became the foundation for secretive rituals to assert his control. He held private ceremonies where only his closest followers could witness his divine proclamations, demanding worship as a living god. Meanwhile, his conquests left cities in ruins, slaughtered thousands, and enslaved countless more. The rituals weren't about reverence, but about perpetuating the myth of his celestial right to rule. His empire, built on blood and deceit, crumbled soon after his death, a fitting end for a man who thought himself immortal but was just another mortal tyrant. Julius Caesar, Rome. Julius Caesar, Rome's ambitious dictator, played the role of a god while treating his people like pawns. Before seizing political power, Caesar served as the high priest of Jupiter, a position he leveraged to dabble in the mysteries of Roman religion. However, his true obsession lay in the secretive rites of the Eleusinian mysteries, a cult that promised divine wisdom and transcendence. He flaunted these sacred connections to elevate himself above mere mortals, declaring himself dictator for life and even erecting statues of himself alongside the gods. Yet his divine aspirations were far from benign. Caesar's political maneuvers plunged Rome into civil war, leaving thousands dead and the Republic in ruins. His inhumane deeds culminated in the wholesale slaughter of the Gauls, a campaign that wiped out millions under the guise of expanding Rome's glory. For all his divine posturing, Caesar met a mortal's end, stabbed by his own senators, a poetic justice for a man who thought himself untouchable. Montezuma II, Aztec Empire. Montezuma II, the last independent ruler of the Aztec Empire, was a king consumed by superstition and a fixation on divine favor. His reign was dominated by ritual bloodletting and human sacrifices, all in service of appeasing gods like Huitzilopochtli. Montezuma oversaw ceremonies that turned Tenochtitlan into a city of horrors, where victims were dragged up temple steps, their hearts ripped out while they were still alive. These atrocities weren't just religious acts, they were tools to instill fear and maintain his grip on power. When the Spanish arrived, Montezuma's obsession with omens and cosmic cycles paralyzed him, leaving his empire vulnerable. His hesitation, born of a belief that the invaders were divine, ultimately led to his downfall. Montezuma's reign, marked by rivers of blood and blind faith, ended in chaos, a tragic yet deserved fate for a ruler whose divine delusions cost countless lives. Shaka Zulu, Zulu Kingdom. Shaka Zulu, the brutal founder of the Zulu kingdom, used secretive rituals and spiritual terror to forge his empire. Shaka's connection to sangomas, traditional healers, was not just spiritual but deeply political. He consulted them for blessings and prophecies, ensuring their rituals aligned with his ruthless campaigns. His secret ceremonies often involved invoking ancestral spirits, but these practices were far from benign. Shaka weaponized spirituality to justify his reign of terror, implementing inhumane military practices that saw entire villages wiped out. His infamous bullhorn battle strategy wasn't the only tactic that left devastation in its wake. His policies of forced migrations and scorched earth left famine and suffering across southern Africa. Behind his facade of divine favor was a king whose paranoia and cruelty knew no bounds. Shaka's reign of terror ended with his assassination, a grim but fitting conclusion to a ruler who lived by the sword and died by it. Louis XIV, France. The Sun King, Louis XIV of France, is remembered for his opulent reign, but beneath the gilded facade lay a ruler obsessed with divine symbolism and secret rituals. Louis styled himself as the embodiment of Apollo, the sun god, aligning his rule with celestial power. His court at Versailles was a theater of esotericism, where hidden rituals involving astrology, alchemy, and hermeticism flourished. These weren't harmless indulgences. They were calculated displays to assert his godlike status over the nobility and commoners alike. Louis demanded absolute control, enforcing his divine right with an iron fist. The construction of Versailles alone cost countless lives, as peasants were taxed into poverty to fund his palace of illusions. His revocation of the Edict of Nantes unleashed religious persecution, driving Protestants out of France and subjecting those who remained to torture. May have shone brightly as the Sun King, but his light cast deep shadows of suffering and despair across his realm. These 5 rulers, revered by some as icons of history, were nothing more than tyrants who twisted religion to serve their egos and ambitions. They wielded secret rituals and divine claims not as paths to enlightenment, but as weapons of control. Their inhumane deeds, whether slaughter, enslavement, or oppression, reveal the true cost of their so-called divine authority. These beast kings did not uplift their people. They crushed them beneath the weight of their vanity and cruelty. Let their legacies serve as cautionary tales. When power cloaks itself in divinity, humanity pays the price.